Woof woof and namaste. This is Hill Dog and welcome to Kana Cast, a series of conversations with visitors and residents of Kana Shantivanam, the International Centre for Heartfulness near Hyderabad in Telangana, India. Today I am speaking with Lynn Geddes. Lynn is a counsellor and yoga teacher, and she is also a heartfulness meditation trainer. For those of you who don't know, heartfulness is a meditation technique that is offered for free by volunteer trainers around the world. It was earlier known by the name Sahaj Marg, or the natural path. Since there will be a lot of reference to heartfulness in this talk, let me just fill you in on the heartfulness guides. The first guide was Lalaji, then there was Babuji. From 1983 to 2014, Chariji was the heartfulness guide. And from 2014 to the present day, Daaji has been the heartfulness guide. You will also hear the word master during this talk. Master refers to both the heartfulness guide as well as the inner master, or the higher self that is within us and all around us. So thank you, Sister Lynn, for sitting down with us, taking out the time and coming to the studio. Thank you so much. We often meet because we're in heartfulness. We practice the same sort of meditation.
Yeah.
But people who come here, I know very little about what they do outside heartfulness, their lives outside heartfulness. So could you give us a peek into what you do? And
in the world of work, I was involved in lots of different things. Addiction was my last process. I ran an addiction agency. So as a result, I've been involved in youth work. And I do a lot of work with young people, and I sit on the board of a young person's project up in the local area and do a lot of work with young people, because they keep me young. And also, there's a bit of the wisdom bridge comes in. I have 65 years of experience that I can share with them.
Sure.
In a different kind of way, different kind of way from the youth work staff who are there.
Absolutely.
So, and I am also involved in an environmental project because that's something that's very dear to my heart. So I'm involved in an action project. So we do a lot of education in schools, the youth work stuff again. We do a lot of actual gardening and grow to eat. And we do a lot of carbon footprint minimisation in Murray, where the area I live up in the north of Scotland. So I do those kinds of things. And I enjoy life, really.
Wow.
I spend a lot of time enjoying life.
So you mentioned that you you ran an addiction center.
Yeah.
So that's where you started out professionally? Or?
No. I started out in community development, in education.
Okay.
Itself, and I worked in education for 10, 11 years anyway. Mm-hmm. In Scotland, we had at one point a community schools programme where the schools within the areas actually belong to the community, not to the local government. And for that reason, we had formal education, which was done by the head teacher, and we had the community education, of which I was the head. So I did that for 10, 11 years, and then left when my children came into the secondary school because there's no way they were going to have anything to do with the school if their mum was in it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Teenage.
Wow.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So how did you get into that? I mean, was education always your field of choice, or?
Not particularly. Action was my field of choice. I was a bit of a rebel as a young person, and I believed that the world needed to be put right as I saw it. Very, very traditional young person feelings,
Absolutely.
Can't be
it's
this,
not
can't
working.
be that. That's not right. What on earth have you done, parents, So it was on that basis that I got involved in working with other young people and creating campaigns and and community development, community action came under that umbrella. Mm-hmm. Somebody actually said to me, "Why don't you go and get the professional qualification?" And I said, "Do you really get paid to do this?" So when I found out that you did, of course, that just had to be the next step. So. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
So you were involved in a lot of activity in the community, even without an official position.
Oh, yes. I'm a busybody, really. I was born a busybody, I think.
Tell us a little about that. Where did you grow up, and what was the childhood like?
Well, I grew up in the north of Scotland. Predominantly, most of the population of Scotland lives in the Central Belt, and I'm about 4 hours north of that, up in a place called Moray, which is on the Moray Firth coast. It's beautiful. It has dolphins, mountains, fantastic climate. It's got a very special microclimate. There's a lot of sheep, a lot of cattle, Highland cattle, hairy ones, but not a lot of people, although there is quite a throughput of population because we have a couple of RAF bases, we have the Findhorn Foundation, so we had quite a big mix of people coming and going and coming and going. And as a result, I got to learn a lot about what was happening in other parts of the world. I was in school with people who had been living in Singapore because their parents and things were in the services. And we did a lot of music.
Oh, wow.
It's a very popular place for traditional music and music. So
It's folk music, huh?
folk music, rock music. I mean, I went to every rock festival there was going. Travelled all over the world to go to rock festivals.
So what years were these?
Well, as a young person, I was in Moray till I was 16, 17. And then I had a year going around France.
Wow.
Just because I had a thing about French people that I really wanted to check out. And did a lot of travelling in Europe. But at those times, it was just after the 60s. It was late 60s. You could hitchhike everywhere.
Sure.
It was safe. It was easy. You could live on next to nothing.
Sure.
It was a completely different climate, really, in terms of social awareness.
What about the bands? What bands were you following around?
Oh, well, yeah. Any band. It was the rock festival, actually, that I liked. The bands were irrelevant, almost. But, yeah, it was, we had the Beatles, we had the Bay City Rollers, David Bowie. He was my hero. Him and Vivekananda.
Wow, that's an interesting combination.
I had a split personality, I think.
No, but now that you mention it, I was speaking to somebody here, Eddie Stern, who's a yoga teacher,
right?
And he says David Bowie was a big influence spiritually on him.
Yes,
and
much yes.
But how? Tell me how that works.
I think it was because he connected to something that was beyond traditional society, but also really resonated with something internally with me, So, Aladdin Sane was Aladdin Sane. I kind of felt a little bit insane in those days because I seemed to be a little bit off the wall, or I was deemed to be a little bit off the wall, perhaps. Far too much energy and far too much kicking up dust. Troublemaker, probably, really would have been.
So, favorite Bowie song?
Oh.
Or you want to do an album?
I would need to do a couple of albums, I think. I think I would really need to do a couple. Patti Smith was another one. I really liked Patti Smith. She was a wee bit off the wall. Just like to be a little bit different, I think. It was my ego's need to be just a little bit on the edge.
What Eddie told me about David Bowie, what he really liked, was the personas that he would get into. But it would be consciously a persona and not him. So he could slip in it. Slip into it and slip out. And
step out, exactly.
Yeah. So pretty much the observer to that persona, not married to it.
No, not at all. And he evolved. That was the other thing. He grew all of these different aspects of himself over a period of time. And I loved the whole process of the next album. Unfortunately, I didn't like his last album. And that was the one that he did just as he was dying. Mm-hmm. And I haven't got into that one at all. I've tried 2 or 3 times and it's just not touched me in the same way, surprisingly. Yeah.
And you mentioned Vivekananda. So where did that influence come from? Bowie, of course, it was pop culture and it was the time, so it was easy to see that influence. But where did Vivekananda come in?
Vivekananda came in because I was interested in health and keeping fit. I mean, there wasn't a lot to do up in Moray. There isn't anything other than the environment, really. So we're taught to ski in the schools. We're taught to use the environment much. So being outdoors and doing health-orientated things was part of growing up there. And yoga was part of that for me. So the yoga was what took me to Vivekananda.
Wow.
Yeah. So at 16, I would be yogaing one day and then partying at a rock festival the next day.
Wow.
Really.
That's a balanced living, I guess.
Yes. Pendulous, perhaps. Yeah.
And so when did Vivekananda move from being associated with yoga to a deeper spiritual quest? Did you think that did he kindle something in you?
Well, I loved what he did for women.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very much an advocate of women's rights. Particularly, my paternal grandmother used to tell me stories of how she grew up, and she remembered the suffragettes. She went down south to meet Mahatma Gandhi.
Wow.
When he came to the UK to see the mills. So she used to regale stories of that, and Vivekananda was very much part of that because he really understood the role of women, I think, in society, which was something I was continually fighting for in my little world, albeit not very well, but certainly with a lot of energy. Yeah.
So tell us about that. You said not very well. You weren't.
Well, I wasn't very articulate about what I felt. I wasn't very good at, and still struggle, to be able to articulate an intuitive part of me that I know is right. For me, it feels really, really true and real. And it's how to share that in a way that doesn't create friction.
Sure.
That was the bit I wasn't very good at. I could have shouted off a soapbox forevermore, but that wasn't very helpful in terms of moving things forward.
Sure. So how did your association with heartfulness come about? Was it something that built up from Vivekananda and the search went on?
It came from the yoga. It did come from the yoga. Eventually I trained as a yoga teacher way back. And I was a married woman with children at that point.
And this training was in Scotland, or you?
Yes, it was done in Scotland.
Okay.
It was done over a 5-year period, international school of yoga. And I was teaching yoga. And when I stopped formal education, I ran my own business for a period of time, which included yoga. And I had reached a stage where the physical yoga, the hatha yoga, and the pranayama and that kind of stuff, just wasn't meeting my need. So I prayed for a guru. I prayed for someone to help me move forward. I felt I wasn't getting anywhere very fast. And I like the action stuff still. So I prayed for a guru, and then I came across this leaflet at Findhorn, which is where a lot of people come and go. And this lady from Belgium had brought this booklet, little leaflet, with a picture of Chariji on the front, and it said Raja Yoga. And I thought, that's what I need, Raja Yoga, because I was following the 8 limbs of Patanjali, and I knew that Raja Yoga was the culmination of all of the other limbs. And so I contacted this organization, only to my dismay to find out that they appeared to do nothing at all related to yoga. And I was very disappointed initially.
They sat in silence and closed their eyes.
Well, they fell asleep, most of them. and not even in a straight position,
Not maintaining good form.
Well, it was so alien to my experience of yoga and that kind of thing. And it took me a long time. I think I was 2 years in the practice before, I really still hadn't made the bridge between my previous yoga experience and heartfulness, or Sajmarg as it was then. I couldn't make the link. I just couldn't get it to meet up. And I knew that my previous experience had something to do with it. But I was also very aware of how it had impacted on me and how it felt. And I really liked that. I really, really enjoyed that. But I wasn't 100% convinced. So I thought I would come to India and with a list of questions and ask the lion himself, because I wasn't getting the answers from anybody else. I just couldn't get this bridge built.
Which year was this?
Which year was that? The first time I came? Well, it must have been 2012. 2020. 2000. It must have been
2000.
2000 because it was
Okay.
98 I started. So
Okay.
about 2 years after that. So I came and Charlie wasn't in the ashram in Manapakam. There was this French man in my life. And he was asking me what I did. And at that point I said, I teach yoga. And he said, what kind of yoga? And I said, it's classical, Patanjali. And he said, he says, of course, Babaji was Patanjali. And I went, really? Because I had no idea. And he said, yes, he says, there's a bit in one of the books that explains that. So I'm up to the library, dug out the book, read the book, couldn't believe the link as was.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and it was synchronicity at that point, that evening, when I said the prayer, the prayer that went with Sahaj Marg at that point in time, the O Master, Thou Art. And I had spent a long time trying to learn that prayer, and I tried to change it so many times in that first 2 years, I wasn't having a master, and I wasn't doing this, and I wasn't doing that. It was maestro. I tried so many different ways of saying it all. Just that feminist angle. And then all of a sudden the prayer just opened up, and I could see all of Patanjali's yoga in that one prayer. I became aware of the distillation of Patanjali's work in that prayer. The very fact that O Master is Om. The OM, it's just,
Sure.
and I thought, there's the Om, straight away in the first two letters. And then the whole thing just, clearly my resistance had gone. So that opened the floodgate.
Wow.
For things to come in. So that was it. That was it. I was convinced then, and 110% convinced.
Wow.
So by the time Chari came, I didn't have a question, not one. I just sat and Googled at him,
Wow.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when this French brother told you that Babuji was Patanjali,
Yes.
was it immediate, or was there some skepticism? Were you comfortable with the transmigration of the soul with many lives?
Oh yes. That was something I was brought up with. Absolutely.
Sure.
Yes. My grandmother was very clear, and my mother also. Yes, it was part of. It's part of our culture. I think.
Of Scottish folklore, is it?
Yes, very much so. I mean, where
Wow.
I live, where I was born, is where Macbeth's witches came from. The three witches.
Oh yes.
Of Macbeth.
When shall we three meet again?
In Thunder Lightning. That's Forest. That's where I was born.
Wow.
So I presume that there's a lot of witches still around, if there is that kind of thing, and that whole process of many lives, many masters, as they say. It was very much part of my. I didn't question the reincarnation thing, but I did need to check it out in the book. I did need to find out that it was accurate and just not this guy's idea.
So, growing up in Scotland, you were pretty open to the spirit world. I mean, there was not like
yes.
that. It's that there's this realm of the spirit.
Oh, it's very much part of our culture, the Celtic, and also the trees and the divas that go with the trees and the underworld. All of that Celtic kind of stuff is very much based on that. It very is about nature and the wisdom of nature. Yes.
And also very rich mythology.
Very rich. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Old stuff.
Yes.
Old stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now you're in Manapakam. You have no questions from Chariji. Chariji is there.
Yeah.
What was that trip like? What happened on that trip?
Well, I don't know what actually happened on the trip. I remember him feeding me honey. A spoonful of honey. Like a baby. And I remember sitting in front of him because he fed 2 or 3 people before me. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, please don't give me honey. I don't like honey. And I was sitting there going, oh my God, please don't. And then he just went like this, and I just opened my mouth like a little baby and stuck it in, and I just ate it. I didn't even taste it, I don't think. But when I went home and I went to see my parents, I was sitting in their kitchen, and my mum looked at me, your mum, only your mother can't. She looked at me, and then she turned around to my father and she went, oh my God, she's in love. And I kind of thought I knew I felt different. but I hadn't put a name to it or anything. And I thought, ooh. And I said, yeah, I think you're right. I think I am in love. Well, my father just about had apoplexy. Because his version of love meant that you then went and got married.
Sure,
You know?
sure.
And he's going, well, I'm not going to any more weddings. I've had enough weddings in this family. And I was sitting going, no. He's already married. This was just, oh, no, that's worse. And it just got more and more silly as I tried to explain to him. I said, no.
He's 73 years old.
He's Indian. And he's going, oh, no, there'll be 40 of them coming. It was really quite funny. But that, I think, consolidated for me, as well as the opening up of the whole process, that yes, this was my tribe. This was where I needed to be, and this was where I would be now for as long as it takes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then, of course, you also were made a trainer.
Yes.
So when was that, and how did that come about?
That came about sometime later. I'd been asked a couple of times if I wanted to be a trainer, but I still had this very rebellious bit of me about authority and what it was all about, kind of thing. So I said, oh, no, I don't think I want to be doing that. I don't think I want to join that gang.
They're the establishment.
Well, yeah. I mean, I really was a bit of a kick-up person at that time. So I didn't. I just didn't. I just didn't go there. I just kept saying, no, I'm fine. I'm working away, doing what I'm doing. And then there was a time came, I'd have been asked again, and I thought, well, if I do this, I'm going to have to give up the yoga classes and things that I was doing. Because by that time I'd gone back into work in terms of a work setting, so my own business was just limited. And I did classes in the evenings. I worked four nights a week. And if I was going to do the preceptor stuff, the trainer stuff, I was going to have to do that in that time. I wasn't going to be able to fit it in any other way. So it took me a little time to let go of being a yoga trainer, a yoga teacher, and closing down the classes, finding people to take over for me. And then it took about a year, I think. And so eventually it was all gone, and I went and became a trainer. And within 6 months of becoming a trainer, I wrote and asked Chariji if I could come and be his student for a year. Because while I had become a trainer, I didn't feel very competent in the job. Mm-hmm. I really felt like a baby trainer. So I wrote to him and asked him, and he gave permission for me to go and spend a year with him in Manapakam.
And this was which year?
2006-07.
Oh, wow.
It was the year leading up to his 80th birthday, his 1,000 moon birthday.
Wow.
So I went and I spent a whole year with him, travelling. I think we went round India 3 times. I was exhausted. And he, coming up to 80 at that point, was still whizzing on each day. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. And a phenomenal experience. And that just really consolidated my trainer work, because I could give up to 13 sittings a day.
Wow.
Because I was with him and he just used to say, go and give sittings, go and do this. And that's what I did.
Wow.
So that really helped me become effective in the trainer field at that point in time. And to have a year with him and take a year off work and family allowed. So, the universe conspired.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, those times traveling around with Chariji, it wasn't easy. I mean, it wasn't.
No. Oh, gosh, no.
So you must have had a fair bit of adventures.
Oh, yes. Many adventures. And it's interesting now because, it becomes very family orientated. When you have those experiences, those deep experiences collectively,
Sure.
There's 3 or 4 of you and you're sharing a room or you're all sleeping in a tent in the middle of nowhere on the earth. And you really share those experiences. You never lose that. And coming back year after year and meeting these people again, we have a deep, deep connection, that we still sit and chat about. Do you remember when we did this and when Chariji sent us to do that and things? So it's lovely. It really is lovely. To the point we used to hide in his cottage in a cupboard waiting for the movies to start so that we could sneak out and watch the movie with them. You know?
Oh yeah, movie night was, of course, every night was movie night.
Yes, but if there was ladies around, you weren't allowed. He would be very specific about which movies he would watch.
Sure. Yeah.
So we used to hide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember those times. And, getting into Chariji's cottage was an ordeal in itself. It was, I don't know who was telling me, there was, the cottage gate was like the graveyard of conditions,
Oh.
There were lost conditions in the graveyard.
It really was a test to your perseverance, for sure.
And patience, and to still retain your equanimity while you're being denied entry.
I knew.
It was very difficult.
It was very different, but there was a training that went on, I think, that was that came about in a way that it's not until you have the degree in hindsight, the retrospect, can you actually see it. But it certainly did a lot for me, and in terms of my faith in knowing, and it really is a knowing that if I have a need, I'm in there, without a doubt. The gate opens, and somehow or other you're there. So it was a good learning for me in actually deciding, is this something I really need? Is there something here that I do need? Or is it just my ego? Is it just a need for attention? Or it really helped the discernment of the two.
I'm sure.
Because I was never, ever let down, ever. There was a lot of times I was chomping at the bit and spitting feathers about not getting in and who was on the gate and how dare they and but for good reasons. For good reasons, for sure.
So now thinking back, Lynn, once you started Heartfulness, was it a gradual acceptance of the path, or was there one particular time, one particular sitting where you said, oh yeah, this is it for me?
In the first 2 years, you mean?
Yes.
I think it was gradual. It was very gradual. I mean, I liked it immediately. I have to say, I did like it immediately. But the person who introduced me for the introductory kind of sittings gave me 2 sittings, and then on the 3rd sitting, which I was really excited about, that person said, actually, I'm going to give this up because I don't think it's for me.
What, really?
So I was never really sure if the 3rd sitting had actually worked. If it.
So he told you before the sitting that.
That he told me that this.
I'm opting out.
This was it.
Wow.
So I was never really sure if I'd been introduced properly, and that was that was a little bit of my first 2 years. I was going, well, maybe I never really got the full recipe of the induction process. And interestingly, I still meet that person.
Wow, he's still around?
He's still around. He's a very old man now, and he does Buddhist chanting,
okay. So he did leave the Heartfulness practice out?
Oh, he left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he did.
Interesting.
He did leave, yeah. But it was gradual. But the first year, my whole life changed completely. The feeling was gradual, but my world turned upside down. Within a year of starting, I was in a different house. I was in a different job. I was in a completely different place in terms of my financial status. Everything was just, I wouldn't have believed it was the same process. It was just phenomenal in 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was it that you really liked about it? I mean, you said you liked it immediately.
I liked the depth of it, which is what I couldn't find in some of the other stuff. I mean, I'm very aware and have been all my days. I think that all of my problems are the neck up. That's where all my issues are. They're all in my head, and this took me to another space altogether, where that didn't get in the way, and so therefore the depth of it was beautiful for me. It was so different and so deep and so calm, whereas in the head I was still fighting the rebel kind of person.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So, of course, you were extremely close to Chariji. You spent that year with him. And I guess you returned every year or so.
Yeah, well, I came as often as I could, annually for sure.
Yes.
Twice, 3 times if I could. It just depended on the finance. But I wasn't close to the man. I would never have said that. I mean, I was close to the guru.
But you were in love with him.
I was certainly in love with, but not the man. And he was very clear with that when I was he says, you don't come too close because I am a man. And he knew my position in relation to men and my fight for the female thing. And he used to say, remember, Lynn, they're only men. I know I am one. And he was continually, when I was at Crest with him, and he asked me to do a thing on women and how women were. And I mean, clearly he was encouraging me to unfold my belief system and really have a look at it in a way that was much more spiritual than practical. So we had lots of conversations around that, and he was very clear, that I shouldn't get too close to the man, but stay very close and never let go of the guru, which is what I've tried to maintain. Yeah, if that makes sense. I know I can see you going a wee bit.
No. I'm just trying to put the word to it as the guru, because a lot of people equate the man and the guru. Perhaps the essence
of
that's
him.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's those different aspects that Bowie had, the different aspects that we all have. I think these little dollies on the tree. Really, there's a part of him that's very much a part of me. That's beyond close. It's the same. It really is the same, and not to let the other stuff get in the way. It's kind of difficult to explain, but I was very careful not to get caught up in the male, female, father, daughter, that kind of relationship kind of thing, because that would just trigger off all my previous traits.
Sure. Okay. So, but that said, still there is a certain fondness that you develop because over interacting with
I
the
loved
person.
him. I loved him. Absolutely loved him. Yeah, and still do.
Of course.
Yeah.
Then, of course, 2014 came about and he was no more in a physical body. How was that for you?
I'm very surprised how well that was managed. Not only for me, but for a lot of the people that I know. And I think he prepared us well for that transition. And again, my upbringing, my understanding, it's just a different form. He's just stepped into he's let go of the body, but he's not gone by any means. And I think that helped also. But I think he spent a long time preparing us, and we all had the opportunity to go and say goodbye. I never ever said goodbye to him until that last time, until I went and saw him in the October, and then he passed on the December.
Yes.
So when I was there in October and we were allowed to walk through the cottage garden, he sat in the veranda in the evening, and I just waved and said goodbye. And he gave me a wave and a wink, which is what he always did, was with the wink. He always used to give me a wink. And that was it. It was done. It was really... And when I got the phone call from India saying that he'd passed, I just went, okay, that's it, And there was a bit of me that was relieved for him. He'd been...
Suffering.
He'd been
physically
ill for a long, long time. And he'd certainly earned the right.
Oh, sure.
He'd certainly earned the right to go.
Sure.
Yeah. Yes. So I still love him. He's still around. I think that's maybe why there isn't a sense of loss.
Sure.
I think, and of course, Kamlesh stepped straight in, and had a foot halfway in anyway before Charlie left.
So it was
well
easy.
planned.
Yeah, it was easy for.
It was well planned. It's a completely different relationship. That's for sure.
How has changed from Chariji to Daaji?
Oh, well, completely different character altogether. And Daaji's, I don't know. I mean, the connection of that internal bit is there, for sure. And that's the same. And, but Kamlesh as a man is very different from Charlie. Very, very different.
Certainly no movie nights happening.
No. And I certainly wouldn't be asking him to spend a year with him. Because, you know, I don't think I would be able to manage. You know, because he's so dynamic.
Yeah.
And just so way above my concept, really, in a lot of ways. And I mean, Charlie was, but never gave that. I never picked that up from him. Whereas Daaji is so amazing and so fast and so in there, you can't help but notice it. You know, and maybe I just didn't notice it with Charlie in the way that he dealt with it. But
yeah,
it's certainly different for me.
Yeah, it seems to be that you can see that Daaji is thinking on a different. Is working on a different plane.
Completely.
And is existing on a different plane from you.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Yeah. So and that can be intimidating as well.
I don't find him intimidating at all, actually. I am very curious of him.
To know what's going on.
And I try and catch it. He's easier to catch than Charlie was, I think. He's more explicit than Charlie was. But I think it's the need of the time, actually. I think it's more to do with the speed that the world is at, the way that we're all moving through it. I don't think he's got the time that Charlie had to allow things to develop in the same way. I think he just has to make sure that it happens. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Really. That would be my sense of it.
Yeah.
But...
yeah, because, I mean... Chariji did lavish a lot of attention, and especially, I mean, when you were just joining the mission, I mean, I had this experience also, I'm sure you did, when you were new. Mm-hmm. There was so much attention.
Oh, yes.
And it was, you know, you felt like the most special person in the world.
Absolutely. And yet, Kamlesh can do that also.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, when I went to see him, when my mother was dying, and I went to see him, Kamlesh, on a one-to-one, and it was interesting because when I was sitting waiting for him, because the rules had all changed completely about how you access the Guru. You know, all of the gate stuff and things had gone completely. Doors were wide open. I said, I don't know. I was asking the folk around about it. I said, I don't know what the process is anymore. I don't know how you do this. And they said, just wait and catch him when he comes back from his... So when he came back and he looked at me and he said, what are you doing here? Like this, you know, kind of this... Oh, he says, don't tell me you're trying to cooperate, which is something I said to him when I was trying to get in the gate once. I was going in the gate to Charlie, and he was coming out. He's going, don't bother. I said, look, I'm trying to cooperate here. I'm going in. and then I just went right past him, and he'd remembered this, and this was like years later. And he said, don't tell me you're trying to cooperate. And I just looked at him. I said, I really need to see you. And he immediately changed and said, come and see me tomorrow, and gave me a time. And when I went to see him and I explained that my mother was dying, she was in palliative care and that individual connection that Charlie gave was immediately there. And a level that I wouldn't have expected from someone I didn't know in the same way. But it was certainly, he did that without a doubt. And I'm eternally grateful when I left the office. It was only 10, 15 minutes, I think, at the most, if that. But he'd certainly done what Charlie had done. And more, probably, I think, because the time was right. I was more open at that point, I think, than I had been before. And it is about me being open enough. You know, I'm fully aware that any restrictions in my communication with him are mine, not his. I know that for sure also. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. I know. It's funny, isn't it?
So, Lynn, you do a lot of work with young people. You still interact a lot with young people.
Yeah.
And I guess back home as well, you meet a lot of people who remind you of yourself as a youngster.
Oh, yes.
So, if you have to introduce the concept of spirituality or meditation or heartfulness to them, what do you say to them?
I don't actually say very much, really, because I'm a counsellor, so I never actually... I ask them rather than offer anything. So I would ask them, what do they want? What are they looking for? What makes them happy? And I work from that angle rather than how about.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't actually do any of that kind of stuff. I'm just with them.
Yeah, you don't want to be an evangelist.
Not now. No, I've done all of that stuff. The flags are packed up and put away. And my grandchildren do that for me. You know, they're carrying on the flag in terms of creating their little bit of kicking dust. Yeah.
So being a grandparent is a very special feeling, I'm sure.
Oh yes, yes.
And often, when we are parents, perhaps, I don't know, I'm not a grandparent yet, but when we are parents, our interaction with our children is different. How is it different as a grandparent?
Oh, it's completely different.
Yeah?
Completely different. I became a single parent when my daughter wasn't quite 2.
Oh.
So I had a lot of work bringing up 2 children, and I have to say it wasn't a process I really enjoyed. I mean, I did to the best of my ability, and thankfully, with the help of friends and God and who else, they've turned out well. But it wasn't an enjoyable process for me. I felt a huge responsibility
Sure.
to the whole thing. But grandparent it's all the good bits of the parenting and nothing else. So I get to play with the children, and I've learnt to play in life as a result of the grandchildren. I was very serious about everything, and I'm very much on a mission as well as in a mission. I was on a mission about fixing the world and that kind of stuff. Life was very serious for me as a young person. I didn't know how to laugh particularly either. But you learn that
seem to have learnt very well.
Oh, I just play. Now I just play. And I think Daaji plays. I think that's what he does. I think he plays all the time.
Yes.
I think that's what we do. So, and the year I was with Chariji was the year my first grandchild came.
Wow.
And I remember saying he called me and he knew there was something going on. He said, "What is it?" And I said, "Oh, Chariji," I says, I've had a message from Scotland. I'm going to be a grandparent, And he went, "Oh, congratulations." And I said, "Well, I don't think so." I said, "I don't think I'm ready for this." And he laughed and he says, "Just wait. Just wait." And then when I went home and saw this grandchild, I could not believe there was a whole chamber in my heart I didn't even know I had. I didn't even know it was in there. And it just opened up, amazingly opened up. And that's where this whole grandparenting thing comes from. It's phenomenal.
Wow.
It's just phenomenal. And it's the best club ever. Really. It's just amazing. And it's not easy either, because you've still got, you've got to be very careful that you don't undermine the parents.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And all of that kind of stuff. But what a boon. What a boon. It really is when you see the evolutionary process. And your baby's had a baby, and
yeah,
it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I would highly recommend it. Yeah.
So, Lynn, after all these years of meditation and being in the Heartfulness way, being a trainer, what do you think is the most valuable thing, most rewarding thing for you?
In terms of the practice, or
in terms of personally, what do you gain most? What do you feel you have gained most by being?
Oh, I couldn't put that into words. I am a completely different person as a result of the practice, for sure. There's a side of me that I would never have come across, I don't think. I wouldn't have been able to uncover. It's there. I mean, I knew as a child, that I came from a different place. We all do, blah, blah, blah. But I would never have been able to access it in this way.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother said to me, she was 75 when she started meditating. And I'd been in the system a long time then. And she said to me, and she was a real God person, brought up Catholic, all that kind of traditional Scottish kind of thing. And she said to me, she says, She says, seeing what this meditation has done for you, she says, if it can do this for you, it must be good. Because, your mum knows you inside out, doesn't she? You've been in there, really. And that, to me, I think was the best accolade I could have ever got for participating in the practice, for doing the practice. But for me, it was about doing it. I still struggle with people who don't do the recipe. They only do half the recipe. And then they wonder why the results are only half the results. And I go, gosh, can you not just follow the recipe?
Why is this cake not sweet? You didn't put any sugar in.
Exactly. So doing it it's a perfect example of following the recipe. Doing it has made my life completely different. There's no two ways about it. Absolutely no two ways about it. But I couldn't put a finger on one bit of it because it's a complete transformation. It really is a complete transformation. I would need a different passport.
Yeah, I heard the story somewhere that somebody went to a meditation retreat and he came back and his dog didn't recognize him.
Well, I'm sure my children kind of go, and was it Freya? My daughter, she'd say, oh yes, we knew Mother before she became an angel. But she only says that when she's annoyed with me.
Well, Lynn, there's a group meditation in 15 minutes.
Oh, right, yes. Is it just...
Yeah, it's 15 minutes away.
Oh,
We've been talking for an hour now.
Oh, my goodness. Right, okay. I'm glad I've got the bicycle.
Thank you so much for taking this
You're
time
welcome,
out. It
you're
was
welcome.
lovely. It was a lot of fun.
It's lovely just to share, isn't it?
It is so nice. And I thank you for coming here and doing that. And maybe we could sit down some other time as well.
For sure.
Thanks so much, Lynn. That was lovely.
Namaste. Cheers.
So that was my conversation with Lynn Geddes. To listen to more such conversations, please subscribe to this channel. You can also find these conversations on Spotify on the Kanhacast channel, that is Kanhacast. Thank you once again for tuning in. This is Hill Dog signing off. Namaste and woof woof.